If you step into that elevator, you'll never see me again. The doors trembled between closing floors. You don't mean that, he said, voice low, dangerous. I mean it, she whispered, tears burning. Because everything you built us on was a lie. I was trying to protect you. You were protecting yourself. The door slid shut. And with that, the woman who owned his soul disappeared. Welcome to Afro-Korean Story Vault. If you want to know what happens next, keep watching. And don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. This story gets darker before it gets better. The silence in the lobby was deafening. Kang Seojin stood frozen. His reflection fractured across the polished marble floor, watching the elevator numbers climb. 12, 15, 20, gone. His chest felt hollow, like someone had carved out his lungs and left only the memory of breathing. He'd rehearsed 1,000 versions of this conversation in his mind, but none of them ended with her walking away. None of them ended with him standing alone in the ruins of his own making. The security guard at the desk glanced at him nervously. Seojin didn't move. Couldn't move. His hands hung useless at his sides, still warm from where they'd gripped her shoulders moments before, trying to hold her in place, trying to rewrite the truth with desperation alone. It didn't work. Outside, rain began to fall, streaking the glass walls of the building like tears the structure itself couldn't contain. Seoul's skyline glittered beyond, indifferent to the destruction happening inside one of its most powerful men. Seojin's phone buzzed. Then again. And again. The media firestorm had begun. He pulled it from his pocket with shaking hands. The screen lit up with notifications, each one a nail in the coffin of his reputation. Tech blogs, financial news sites, social media explosions. His name trending worldwide, paired with words like theft, scandal, betrayal. Tech mogul Kang Seojin accused of stealing company from half-brother. Did he marry his brother's ex-fiancée out of revenge? Insider sources claim he's been lying for years. The articles blurred together, but the narrative was clear. Kang Miho, his estranged half-brother, had finally struck. Years of quiet resentment had crystallized into a calculated attack, and Miho had chosen his moment perfectly. Right when Seojin's marriage to Lena was at its most vulnerable. Right when the cracks were already showing. Seojin scrolled through the headlines with detached horror. The company he'd built, or stolen depending on who was telling the story, was hemorrhaging value by the minute. Stock prices plummeted. Board members were calling emergency meetings. Investors were demanding answers. But none of it mattered. None of it came close to the terror of losing her. He looked back at the elevator doors, now closed and still. She was gone. Really gone. Not just to the penthouse upstairs or to a business trip abroad, but gone in the way that felt permanent, final, like death. His phone rang. He ignored it. It rang again. And again. The assistant. The lawyers. The PR team. Everyone wanted a piece of him, wanted him to strategize, to spin, to fight back. But Seojin couldn't think past the look in Lena's eyes when she'd said those words. Everything you built us on was a lie. She was right. He had lied. By omission, by misdirection, by careful construction of a reality that protected him more than it honored her. He'd told himself it was love, that keeping secrets was the same as keeping her safe. But standing here now, alone in the wreckage, he could see the truth with brutal clarity. He'd been a coward. The phone buzzed with a new message. This one made his blood run cold. It was from Kang Miho. How does it feel to lose everything, brother? Seojin's jaw clenched. His fingers tightened around the phone until his knuckles went white. Miho had orchestrated this perfectly, waited until Seojin had something precious to lose, then stripped it away piece by piece. The company was just the beginning. Lena was the real target. The only thing that could truly destroy him. And it had worked. Another message appeared. She deserved to know the truth. I just helped her see what you really are. Rage flooded through him, hot and violent. Seojin wanted to throw the phone across the lobby, wanted to storm into Miho's office and make him answer for every calculated word, every poison-tipped revelation. But beneath the anger was something worse, shame. Because Miho hadn't lied. He'd simply told Lena what Seojin should have told her years ago. The elevator dinged. Seojin's heart lurched. For one desperate second, he thought she'd come back. that she changed her mind. That love would be enough to override betrayal. But when the doors opened, it was just an executive from the 15th floor, hurrying out with a briefcase and a carefully averted gaze. Everyone knew. Everyone was already treating him like a man marked for ruin. Seojin forced himself to move. His legs felt heavy, foreign, like they belonged to someone else. He walked to the private elevator that led directly to the penthouse, his penthouse, the space he'd shared with Lena for 2 years. The doors opened at his fingerprint. He stepped inside and pressed the button for the 45th floor. The ride up felt endless. His reflection stared back at him from the polished steel walls, sharp suit, tired eyes, a face that had learned to hide everything except in the presence of one woman. He looked like a stranger. When the doors opened, the penthouse was exactly as they'd left it that morning. Coffee cups still on the counter. Her scarf draped over the back of the couch. The faint scent of her perfume lingering in the air, something floral and delicate that had always made him feel like he was standing in sunlight. Seojin walked through the space slowly, touching nothing, as if the apartment itself might shatter if he acknowledged what had happened. The floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, Seoul sprawling below like a kingdom he'd once commanded. Now it felt like a cage. He found himself in his private study, the one room Lena rarely entered. She'd respected his need for space, for privacy. If only she'd known what he was hiding there. Seojin opened the bottom drawer of his desk. Beneath financial documents and contracts lay a leather-bound sketchbook. His hands trembled as he lifted it out, as if holding something sacred or forbidden or both. He opened to the first page. A pencil drawing of Lena, dated 7 years ago. Before they'd met officially. Before she'd known his name. He'd seen her at a gallery opening in Paris, standing in front of a Rothko, utterly absorbed. She'd been with Miho then, his brother's arm around her waist, but Seojin hadn't been able to look away. He'd gone home that night and drawn her from memory. The curve of her jaw, the way her hair fell across her shoulders, the distant, thoughtful expression that made her seem unreachable. Page after page, year after year, drawings of a woman he'd loved in secret, from a distance, with the kind of desperate patience that could only belong to someone who knew they had no right to her. And then 3 years ago, Miho had broken their engagement. Abruptly, cruelly. Lena had been devastated, adrift in a foreign country with a life that had collapsed overnight. And Seojin had been there. Not by accident. He'd made sure of it. He'd offered comfort, friendship, a shoulder to lean on. And slowly, carefully, he'd woven himself into her life until she couldn't imagine it without him. Was that love? Or was it theft of a different kind? Seojin closed the sketchbook and pressed his palms against his eyes. The truth was messy, complicated, impossible to untangle. He had loved her. He did love her. But he'd also taken advantage of her vulnerability, positioned himself as her savior while hiding the fact that he was the reason her life had fallen apart in the first place. Because he'd been the one to orchestrate Miho's downfall. The one to convince their father to cut Miho out of the business. The one to ensure that Miho's engagement to Lena would crumble under the weight of financial ruin and family betrayal. Seojin had taken everything from his brother. And then he'd taken Lena too. The worst part? She'd never known. She'd fallen in love with him believing he was a good man. A kind man. Someone who'd stumbled into her life by chance. Every kiss, every whispered promise, every moment of intimacy had been built on a foundation of lies. His phone buzzed again. This time, it was his assistant. "Sir, the board is demanding a statement. We need to address this tonight." He typed back mechanically. "Cancel everything. I'm unavailable." "Sir, with all due respect, you can't just disappear. This is a crisis." "Then let it burn." He powered off the phone and set it on the desk. The silence that followed was almost unbearable. For the first time in his life, Kang Seojin didn't have a plan. No strategy, no backup, no contingency. He was just a man sitting in an empty apartment, surrounded by the ghost of a woman who'd finally seen him for what he really was. And the terrifying part? He didn't know if he could live in a world where she didn't exist beside him. Days passed. Maybe a week. Time became meaningless. Seojin didn't go to the office. Didn't answer calls. Didn't eat unless his body demanded it. He existed in a fugue state, moving through the penthouse like a phantom haunting his own life. The media frenzy intensified. Analysts predicted his company's collapse. Board members staged a vote of no confidence. Miho gave interviews, playing the wounded brother with Oscar-worthy precision. And through it all, Lena remained silent. Invisible. Seojin hired investigators. The best money could buy. They searched every database, tracked every credit card, monitored every airport and train station. Nothing. Lena Veru had vanished as completely as if she'd never existed. Late one night, unable to sleep, Seojin found himself going through her things. Clothes still hanging in the closet. Books stacked on the nightstand. A half-finished cup of tea on the bathroom counter, now cold and forgotten. He picked up the cup and held it carefully, as if it might contain some trace of her, some way back. In the back of her closet, he found a box. Old photographs, letters, documents from before they'd met. He'd never pried into her past, another way he'd maintained control, he realized now. Keep her focused on the present, on him, on the life they were building together. But now desperate, he opened the box and sifted through its contents. Pictures of Lena as a teenager, thin and serious. School records from various American cities. She'd moved often, been shuffled through foster care after her mother's death. Letters from social workers. And then near the bottom, a card. Evelyn Ross, family counselor. A phone number. An address in a small town on the Atlantic coast, somewhere Seojin had never heard of. He stared at the card for a long moment. This was it. The only lead. The only thread connecting him to Lena's past, to the life she'd lived before him. If she'd run anywhere, it would be to someone who'd known her when she was most vulnerable, most in need of protection. Seojin booked a flight before he could second-guess himself. He left the penthouse, left the city, left the empire that was crumbling behind him. None of it mattered anymore. Only she mattered. The flight to Boston was turbulent, the drive north even worse. Rain hammered the windshield as Seojin navigated narrow coastal roads, his rental car struggling against the wind. The town finally appeared through the fog, a cluster of weathered houses clinging to rocky cliffs, the Atlantic roaring below. It was the kind of place people came to disappear. He found Evelyn Ross's address easily. A small cottage with peeling paint and a garden gone wild, perched at the edge of a cliff path. Seojin parked and sat in the car for a moment, his heart pounding. What if Lena wasn't here? What if she was, but refused to see him? What if he'd come all this way only to lose her again? He got out of the car. The wind cut through his jacket, carrying the smell of salt and decay. He walked up to the door and knocked. An older woman answered, 60s, maybe 70s, with sharp eyes and a face that had seen too much to be easily fooled. Who's asking? My name is Kang Seojin. I'm looking for, I know who you are, she interrupted. Saw you on the news. You're the man who broke that girl's heart. The words hit like a physical blow. Seojin swallowed hard. Is she here? Evelyn studied him for a long moment, as if weighing his worth. Finally, she stepped aside. She's walking the cliff path. Has been every day since she got here. But I'm warning you, if you hurt her again, I don't care how rich or powerful you are. I'll make sure you regret it. Seojin nodded. Understood. He left the cottage and followed the narrow path that wound along the cliffs. The fog was thick, swirling around him like something alive. The ocean crashed below, violent and relentless. And then through the mist he saw her. Lena stood at the edge of the cliff, her hair whipping in the wind, her silhouette framed against the gray sky. She looked smaller somehow, fragile in a way she'd never seemed before. But even broken, even stripped of the polish and confidence that had defined her, she was devastating. Seojin's breath caught. He stopped walking, suddenly terrified to get closer. Terrified that speaking would shatter whatever fragile reality was holding her together. But she must have sensed him. She turned slowly, and when her eyes met his, the pain in them was so raw it nearly brought him to his knees. How did you find me? Her voice was hoarse, barely audible over the wind. I'll always find you, Seojin said. No matter where you go. That's not romantic. That's terrifying. I know. He took a step closer. I know what I am, Lena. I know what I did. But I need you to hear me say it. I need you to know the truth. I already know the truth, she said bitterly. You stole from your brother. You destroyed his life. And then you married the woman he loved just to finish the job. No. The word came out sharper than he intended. That's what Miho wants you to believe. That's the story he's selling. But it's not the whole truth. Then tell me, she demanded. Tell me everything. No more secrets. No more protection. Just the truth. Seojin took a breath. This was it. The moment that would either save them or destroy whatever was left. I did take the company from Miho. Our father wanted to split it between us. But I convinced him that Miho wasn't capable, that he'd run it into the ground. I was ruthless about it. I made sure Miho had nothing. Lena's face twisted with pain. But I didn't do it to hurt him, Seojin continued. I did it because I saw what he was doing to you. The way he controlled you. The way he made you smaller, quieter, less yourself. I watched him crush your spirit piece by piece, and I couldn't stand it. So you destroyed him to save me? She said incredulously. That's your defense? No. I destroyed him because I was in love with you. The confession came out raw, unvarnished. I'd been in love with you for years. Since the first time I saw you in Paris. You were standing in front of a painting, and you looked so lost, so beautiful, and I knew I'd never feel that way about anyone else. But you were with him. You'd chosen him. And I had no right to you. Tears spilled down Lena's cheeks. So you took away my choice. You manipulated everything so I'd end up with you instead. Yes, Seojin admitted. I did. And I will never forgive myself for that. I robbed you of your agency, your right to decide your own life. I made myself your savior when I was really just another man trying to possess you. The wind howled around them. Lena looked away, out at the churning ocean. Why are you here, Seojin? Because I love you, he said simply. Not the version of you I tried to create. Not the woman I thought I could mold. But you. The real you. The one who's strong enough to walk away from me. The one who deserves so much better than what I gave you. Love isn't supposed to feel like this, she whispered. It's not supposed to hurt this much. I know. Seojin moved closer, close enough to touch her, but keeping his hands at his sides. But it's the only love I know how to give. And if you let me, I'll spend the rest of my life trying to earn back what I stole from you. Your trust. Your choice. Your freedom. Lena finally looked at him. Her eyes were red-rimmed, exhausted. I don't know if I can forgive you. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Seojin said. I'm asking for a chance to prove that I can be the man you deserved all along. The silence stretched between them, heavy with everything unsaid. Then Lena turned and walked back down the cliff path, toward Evelyn's cottage. Seojin followed, his heart hammering with uncertainty. She didn't tell him to leave, but she didn't invite him to stay either. They reached the cottage as the rain began to fall harder. Evelyn opened the door, took one look at both of them, and sighed. You both look like drowned rats. Get inside before you catch pneumonia. Lena walked in without a word. Seojin hesitated at the threshold, unsure if he was welcome. Evelyn gave him a sharp look. Well, you coming in or not? He stepped inside. The cottage was small, warm, filled with the smell of wood smoke and lavender. Evelyn pointed to a chair by the fireplace. Sit. Both of you. I'll make tea. Seojin and Lena sat on opposite sides of the room, carefully not looking at each other. The silence was excruciating. Evelyn returned with 3 mugs and settled into her own chair, studying them both with the practiced eye of someone who'd spent decades counseling broken people. So she said, addressing Seojin, you're the man who thinks love justifies manipulation. And you, she turned to Lena, are the woman who's afraid that forgiving him means losing yourself. Am I close? The accuracy of her assessment was startling. Seojin opened his mouth to respond, but Evelyn held up a hand. I don't need your explanations. I need you to understand something. Love without honesty is just another kind of prison. And forgiveness without boundaries is just self-destruction. She took a sip of her tea. You two have a choice to make. You can keep circling each other like wounded animals. Or you can decide whether there's anything left worth saving. But here's the thing, neither of you gets to control how this ends. You can only control what you do next. With that, she stood and left the room, leaving them alone with the weight of her words. Lena stared into her mug. I don't know how to be around you anymore. she said quietly. Everything I thought I knew about us was a lie. Not everything, Seojin said. The way I felt about you was real. The life we built, flawed as it was, had real moments. Real love. How am I supposed to know the difference? She asked. How am I supposed to trust my own judgment when I was so wrong about you? You weren't wrong, Seojin said. You saw the parts of me I wanted you to see. The parts that were real. I just hid the rest. That's the same thing as lying, Lena said. It is, he agreed. And I can't undo that. All I can do is promise that from now on, you'll see everything. The good, the bad, the parts I'm ashamed of. No more hiding. Lena looked at him then, really looked at him. And Seojin felt exposed in a way he'd never experienced. It was terrifying. It was also somehow a relief. I need time, she said finally. I need to figure out who I am without you. Without the version of myself I became in your orbit. I understand, Seojin said, even though the words felt like knives. Take all the time you need. I'll be here. And so began the strangest period of Seojin's life. He rented a room at a small inn in town. A far cry from the luxury he was accustomed to. He spent his days walking the cliffs, thinking, forcing himself to sit with the discomfort of not controlling anything. Lena continued staying at Evelyn's cottage, and occasionally, they'd cross paths in town. A nod. A brief hello. Nothing more. But Seojin also started doing something he'd never done before. He started cooking. Not hiring chefs or ordering takeout, but actually learning to prepare meals. He'd leave containers of food on Evelyn's doorstep. Simple things at first, pasta, soup, bread. He never knocked. Never demanded acknowledgement. He just left them and walked away. One day, he found a note tucked under his door at the inn. The soup was too salty. But thank you. It was unsigned, but he knew Lena's handwriting. His heart soared. Days turned into weeks. Seojin learned patience in a way he'd never had to before. In Seoul, he'd been a man who made things happen, who bent the world to his will. Here, stripped of power and resources, he was just a person trying to prove himself through small, consistent actions. He fixed Evelyn's leaking roof, helped with her garden, learned to exist without expecting anything in return. One evening, as he was walking back from the market, he found Lena sitting on a bench overlooking the ocean. She didn't look at him as he approached, but she didn't leave either. Can I sit? He asked. She nodded. They sat in silence for a long time, watching the sun sink toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Evelyn told me what you've been doing, Lena said eventually. The cooking. The repairs. All of it. I'm not trying to buy my way back into your life, Seojin said. I know you're not, she said. That's what makes it hard. Because I want to stay angry at you. I want to hold on to the rage because it feels safer than the alternative. Which is? He asked. Admitting that I still love you, she whispered. Even after everything. The confession hung in the air between them, fragile and terrifying. Seojin's throat tightened. I don't deserve that, he said. No, Lena agreed. You don't. But love doesn't work that way, does it? It doesn't wait for someone to earn it or deserve it. It just exists, inconvenient and painful and real. She turned to look at him finally. I'm not saying I forgive you. I'm not saying we can go back to what we were. But maybe we can figure out what comes next. What do you want that to look like? Seojin asked carefully. I don't know yet, Lena admitted. But I think we need to go back to Seoul. Face what's waiting there. And you need to fix what you destroyed, not for me, but because it's the right thing to do. You mean the company? He asked. I mean everything, she said. Your relationship with Miho. The people you hurt on your way up. All of it. If there's any chance for us, you need to become someone I can respect. Not just love, but respect. Seojin nodded slowly. It was a monumental task, maybe an impossible one. But for the first time in weeks, he felt something like hope. I'll do it, he said. Whatever it takes. Lena stood. There's a board meeting next week. Your company's on the verge of collapse. If you don't show up, you'll lose everything. Are you ready for that? He stood too, facing her in the dying light. The company doesn't matter, he said. But if saving it means proving myself to you, then yes. I'm ready. The flight back to Seoul was tense. Seojin and Lena sat in first class, separated by an armrest that might as well have been a canyon. Neither of them spoke much. Both were lost in thoughts of what awaited them. The media would be vicious. The board would be hostile. And Miho would be waiting, ready to deliver the final blow. When they landed, Seojin's assistant Ji-woo was there to meet them, looking harried and exhausted. Sir, the situation is worse than we thought. The board vote is scheduled for tomorrow afternoon. If you don't have a solid defense, they're going to remove you as CEO. I know, Seojin said calmly. Set up a meeting with Miho. Tonight. Ji-woo's eyes widened. Sir, are you sure that's wise? It's necessary, Seojin said. Lena touched his arm lightly. Are you sure about this? He looked at her, drawing strength from her presence. If I'm going to rebuild anything, it has to start with him. She nodded, understanding. The meeting took place in a private room at a downtown hotel. Miho arrived exactly on time, dressed in an expensive suit, every inch the wronged brother turned successful entrepreneur. He'd built his own company in the years since their falling out, smaller than Seojin's but respectable. When he saw Lena standing beside Seojin, his expression flickered with something, surprise perhaps or satisfaction. So Miho said, settling into a chair. The prodigal brother returns. And he brings my ex-fiancée as a shield. How poetic. She's not a shield, Seojin said evenly. She's here because she chose to be. And I'm here to offer you something. Miho raised an eyebrow. What could you possibly offer me that I don't already have? The truth, Seojin said. And an apology. Miho laughed, but there was no humor in it. An apology? After everything you took from me? After you systematically destroyed my life and stole the woman I loved? Do you really think sorry is going to fix that? No, Seojin said. I don't think anything can fix what I did. But I'm going to try anyway. He pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. This contains documentation of every move I made to undermine you. Every conversation with father. Every backdoor deal. Every manipulation. It's all there. Miho opened the folder, his expression growing darker with each page. Why are you showing me this? It's ammunition. Evidence I could use to destroy you completely in court. Because you deserve to know the full extent of what I did, Seojin said. And because I'm not going to hide anymore. You want to take me down? Go ahead. Use everything in that folder. Ruin me. I won't fight back. Miho looked up, his eyes sharp with suspicion. What's the catch? There is no catch, Seojin said. I'm done playing games. I'm done protecting myself at other people's expense. If destroying me brings you peace, then do it. The room fell silent. Miho studied his brother's face, searching for the angle, the manipulation. But Seojin's expression was open, vulnerable in a way Miho had never seen. You really mean that, Miho said slowly. You're actually willing to let me destroy you? Yes, Seojin said. Because you're right. I took everything from you. Your company. Your future. And yes, Lena. I don't expect forgiveness. I just want you to know that I see what I did. And I'm sorry. Miho sat back, processing. Then he looked at Lena. And you? Are you back with him? Are you going to play happy couple while he makes his grand redemption tour? Lena met his gaze steadily. I don't know what I'm doing, she said honestly. But I needed to hear him take responsibility. Not just to me, but to you. What he did was unforgivable. But watching him try to make it right, that's something. Miho's jaw tightened. You always were too forgiving, Lena. Too soft. That's not softness, Lena said quietly. It's strength. It takes more courage to risk being hurt again than to walk away. Miho closed the folder. I need time to think about this. But understand something, Seojin. This doesn't make us brothers again. This doesn't erase what you did. You'll have to live with that for the rest of your life. I know, Seojin said. Miho stood and left without another word. The board meeting the next day was brutal. Shareholders, angry and panicked, demanded answers. Executives who'd once smiled at Seojin now looked at him with contempt. And at the center of it all was the vote of no confidence, the motion to remove him as CEO. Seojin stood at the head of the table, Lena seated in the back row watching. He didn't have a polished speech prepared. No PR-approved talking points. Just the truth. I won't waste your time defending the indefensible, he began. Everything you've read about me is true. I manipulated my way into this position. I destroyed my brother's career to eliminate competition. I built this company on lies and betrayal. And I understand if you want me gone." The room erupted in murmurs. But Seojin continued. "However, before you vote, I want you to know what I'm planning to do. I'm restructuring the company from the ground up, implementing transparency measures, creating an ethics board with real power, and I'm setting up a substantial fund to compensate everyone I've harmed, starting with my brother." One of the board members, an older woman named Director Choi, spoke up. "Why should we trust you now? What's different?" "What's different is that I've lost everything that mattered," Seojin said simply. "My reputation, my marriage, my self-respect. And in losing it all, I finally understood what actually matters. Not power, not control, but being someone worthy of the trust people place in me." "It's a hard sell," Director Choi said. "You're asking us to bet on your redemption." "I know," Seojin said. "And if you vote me out, I'll accept that decision. But if you give me one more chance, I promise you won't regret it." The vote was close. Painfully close. In the end, Seojin retained his position by a margin of 3 votes. It was a victory that felt more like a reprieve, a temporary stay of execution. As the board filed out, Lena approached him. "You did well," she said. "It's a start," he replied. "Just a start." That night, Seojin returned to the penthouse for the first time since Lena had left. It still felt like a mausoleum, haunted by the memory of what they'd been. He stood at the window, looking out over Seoul, when his phone rang. It was an unknown number. "Hello, Seojin?" The voice was smooth, feminine, vaguely familiar. "This is Yura Choi. I heard about the board meeting. Congratulations on keeping your throne." Seojin's blood ran cold. Yura Choi, his ex from years ago, before Lena. A woman he'd dated briefly, someone he'd thought was ancient history. "What do you want, Yura?" "Just to reconnect," she said sweetly. "It's been so long. And I heard you and Lena are having problems. I thought you might need a friend." "I don't need anything from you," Seojin said flatly. "Don't be like that," Yura purred. "We were good together once. And I've changed. Matured. I think we could be good together again." Seojin hung up. But the call left him uneasy. Yura wasn't someone who did anything without calculation. If she was reaching out now, it was because she saw an opportunity. And that meant trouble. Over the next few days, Yura made her presence known in subtle, insidious ways. A bottle of expensive champagne delivered to Seojin's office with a note. For old time's sake. Articles in society magazines mentioning how she'd been spotted at the same charity galas as Seojin, complete with photos of them in proximity, though they hadn't actually spoken. Rumors started circulating that Seojin had moved on from Lena, that he and Yura were rekindling their romance. Lena heard the rumors. Of course she did. They were everywhere. And even though she knew Seojin was keeping his distance from Yura, even though he showed her every text, every message, every attempt at contact, jealousy still burned. It was irrational, she knew. But watching another woman circle the man she was trying to forgive felt like salt in wounds that hadn't fully healed. One evening, Lena confronted him. She showed up at his office unannounced, her eyes flashing with barely contained anger. "Are you sleeping with her?" she demanded without preamble. "What? No." Seojin looked genuinely shocked. "Lena, I haven't even seen Yura in person. The photos, the rumors, it's all manufactured." "I believe you," Lena said. "But that doesn't make it hurt less. Watching her touch your arm in pictures. Seeing her smile like she knows something I don't. It's driving me crazy." Seojin stood and crossed to her. "Then tell me what you need. Tell me how to make this better." "I need you to make her stop," Lena said. "I need you to shut this down completely. Not for me. For us. If we're going to have any chance, I can't spend every day wondering if you're going to leave me for someone less complicated." "I will never leave you," Seojin said fiercely. "Not for Yura. Not for anyone. You're the only woman I've ever truly loved." "Then prove it," Lena challenged. "Make a public statement. Tell the world that you and I are working on our marriage. That Yura means nothing. Cut her off completely." Seojin pulled out his phone immediately. He drafted a statement, had Lena approve it, and sent it to his PR team with instructions to release it within the hour. By the time Lena left his office, the statement was already trending online. Kang Seojin sets record straight, committed to rebuilding marriage with Lena Varu. Former flame Yura Choi not in the picture. But Yura wasn't the type to be dismissed so easily. If anything, the public rejection only made her more determined. She shifted strategies, moving from seduction to psychological warfare. The next attack came during a major shareholder gala, an event Seojin couldn't avoid. It was his first major public appearance since the scandal, and everyone would be watching. Lena insisted on attending with him, presenting a united front. They arrived together, Lena stunning in an emerald gown that echoed the one she'd worn on their first date. Seojin kept his hand on the small of her back, a gesture of possession and protection. The ballroom fell silent as they entered, hundreds of eyes tracking their every move. Then the whispers started, a wave of gossip that rippled through the crowd like wildfire. Seojin ignored it. He'd learned to exist in the eye of the storm. He and Lena made their way through the room, greeting shareholders, accepting congratulations on their reconciliation with fixed smiles. Everything was going smoothly until Yura arrived. She made an entrance as she always did, a crimson dress that left little to the imagination. Her hair swept up elegantly, diamonds glittering at her throat. She looked like sin wrapped in silk, and she knew it. Yura made a beeline straight for them. Seojin felt Lena tense beside him. Seojin, she said warmly, as if they were old friends. And Lena, how lovely to finally meet you properly. I've heard so much. Lena's smile didn't reach her eyes. I wish I could say the same. Yura laughed, a musical sound that grated on Seojin's nerves. Oh, don't be like that. Seojin and I are ancient history. I'm just here to support him during this difficult time. He doesn't need your support, Lena said evenly. Of course not, Yura agreed, but there was something sharp in her eyes. He has you. Though I have to say, I was surprised when I heard you two were back together. After everything that happened, I thought you'd have more self-respect than to take him back. The words were designed to wound, and they hit their target. Lena's face paled. Seojin stepped between them. That's enough, Yura. Whatever game you're playing, it ends now. Game. Yura's eyes widened innocently. I'm not playing any game. I'm just concerned about an old friend. You were never my friend, Seojin said coldly. You were a distraction I indulged years ago. Nothing more. And if you continue to harass me or my wife, I'll have you removed from every guest list in Seoul. Do I make myself clear? Yura's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing the venom beneath. Crystal clear, she said. Then she smiled at Lena. Enjoy him while it lasts, darling. Men like Seojin don't change. They just get better at hiding who they really are. She turned and walked away, leaving a trail of expensive perfume and malice in her wake. Lena was trembling. I need air, she said. Seojin guided her out to the terrace, away from prying eyes. The night air was cool against their skin, a relief after the suffocating atmosphere inside. I'm sorry, he said. I should have anticipated this. I should have done more to protect you from her. It's not your fault, Lena said, but her voice was shaky. It's just she knows exactly what to say. She knows exactly where I'm vulnerable. Because she's right, isn't she? How do I know you've really changed? How do I know this isn't just another version of you manipulating me? Seojin turned her to face him, his hands gentle on her shoulders. You don't know, he said honestly. There's no way I can prove it beyond showing up every day and being the person I promised to be. But Lena, I need you to decide if you can live with that uncertainty. Because I can't keep fighting to prove myself if you're never going to believe me. The words hung between them, heavy with truth. Lena closed her eyes, tears sliding down her cheeks. I want to believe you, she whispered. I want it so badly. But I'm terrified. What if I give you everything and you break me again? Then you'll survive, Seojin said. Because you're stronger than you think. You survived losing me the first time. You survived discovering the truth about me. You're not fragile, Lena. You never were. That was just another lie I told myself to justify controlling you. Lena opened her eyes, and in them Seojin saw something shift. A decision being made. A bridge being crossed. I'm tired of being afraid, she said. I'm tired of letting the past dictate my future. So here's what's going to happen. We're going back inside. We're going to finish this event together. And tomorrow, we're going to start therapy. Real therapy, where we work through everything. If we're going to do this, we're going to do it right. Agreed, Seojin said immediately. Whatever you need. They returned to the ballroom hand in hand. The rest of the evening passed without incident. Though Seojin could feel Yura's eyes on them from across the room, calculating, waiting for another opening. But there wouldn't be one. Not tonight. When they finally left, exhausted but intact, Lena leaned her head on Seojin's shoulder in the car. That was harder than I expected, she admitted. You were incredible, he said. The way you stood up to her. The way you held your ground. I'm in awe of you. Don't, Lena said. Don't put me on a pedestal. I'm just as messy and broken as you are. I know, Seojin said, and that's why I love you. Because you're real. Because you're human. Because even broken, you're the most extraordinary person I've ever known. The car pulled up to the penthouse. They rode the elevator in silence, both aware that they were returning to the place where everything had fallen apart. The doors opened, and they stepped into the apartment together. It felt different now, less like a crime scene and more like a space waiting to be reclaimed. Lena walked to the windows looking out at the city. I think I'm ready to move back in, she said quietly. Not because everything's fixed, but because I don't want to keep running. Are you sure? Seojin asked, afraid to hope. I'm not sure about anything, Lena admitted. But I know I want to try. And I can't do that if I'm hiding in Evelyn's cottage or some hotel room. We need to face this together. In the place where it all went wrong. Seojin joined her at the window. Then we'll make new memories, he said. Better ones. We'll turn this place into something that belongs to both of us, not just to my version of what our life should be. They stood there for a long time, side by side, watching the city lights twinkle below. It wasn't forgiveness yet. It wasn't even close to healed. But it was a beginning. A fragile, tentative beginning. The therapy sessions were brutal. The counselor, Dr. Park, was a no-nonsense woman in her 50s who didn't let either of them hide behind pretty words or comfortable lies. She made them confront everything. The power imbalance. The manipulation. The codependency that had masked itself as love. In one particularly difficult session, Dr. Park addressed Seojin directly. You talk about loving Lena, but what you're describing sounds more like obsession. You fixated on her for years, engineered circumstances to put yourself in her path, and then constructed a relationship based on her dependence on you. That's not love. That's possession. Seojin felt the words like punches. I know the difference now, he said quietly. Love is wanting someone to be free, even if that freedom takes them away from you. Possession is needing them to stay, no matter the cost. And which one do you practice? Dr. Park pressed. Both, Seojin admitted. I love her enough to want her happiness above my own. But I'm also terrified of losing her. That terror makes me want to control things, to make sure she stays. I'm fighting that impulse every day. Lena spoke up then. And I'm learning that I have my own work to do. I've spent so long being rescued, first by Miho, then by Seojin, that I forgot how to rescue myself. I need to figure out who I am outside of being someone's wife. Dr. Park nodded approvingly. That's excellent insight, Lena. What does that look like for you practically? I'm going back to work, Lena said. I used to be a curator before I met Miho. I gave it up when we got engaged and I never went back. But there's a position opening at the Seoul Museum of Contemporary Art. I'm going to apply. Seojin felt a surge of pride mixed with fear. That's wonderful, he said carefully. But, Dr. Park prompted, sensing his hesitation. But it means she'll have her own life, her own schedule, her own world that doesn't revolve around me, Seojin admitted. And that terrifies me because it means I can't monitor her safety, her happiness, her well-being every second of every day. Which is exactly why it's necessary, Dr. Park said. You need to learn to trust. And Lena needs to learn to exist independently. Neither of those things will be comfortable. But they're essential if you want a healthy relationship. The sessions continued week after week. Some days were better than others. Some days they left holding hands, feeling like they'd made progress. Other days they left angry, frustrated, raw from reopening wounds that hadn't fully healed. But they kept showing up. That was the important part. They kept choosing to do the work. Meanwhile, Yura hadn't given up. She'd just gotten more sophisticated in her attacks. She started attending the same social events as Lena, always dressed impeccably, always with a handsome man on her arm, always positioning herself just close enough to be noticed, but not close enough to be accused of harassment. She'd smile at Lena across crowded rooms, a smile that said, "I know something you don't." She'd leave comments on social media posts, nothing overtly hostile, just supportive enough to seem friendly while carrying an undercurrent of threat. It was psychological warfare at its finest, and it was working. Lena found herself constantly on edge, waiting for the next shoe to drop. She started having nightmares, started questioning every interaction Seojin had with other women, started seeing threats where there weren't any. One night, after a particularly bad dream, she woke up gasping. Seojin was immediately awake beside her, reaching for her in the darkness. "What is it? What's wrong?" Yura, Lena said, her voice thick with tears. "I dreamed you left me for her. That you told me I was too damaged, too difficult, and that you wanted someone easy." "I'm not leaving you," Seojin said firmly. "And you're not difficult. You're healing from trauma I caused." "That's not the same thing." "But what if she's right?" Lena whispered. "What if men like you don't really change? What if you're just waiting for me to let my guard down so you can hurt me again?" Seojin sat up and turned on the bedside lamp. He needed her to see his face, to see the truth in his eyes. "Lena, look at me." She did reluctantly. "If I wanted to hurt you again, I've had 1,000 opportunities," Seojin said. "Every time you've been vulnerable with me, every time you've trusted me with your pain, I could have used those moments against you. But I didn't. And I won't. Because I'm not the man I was a year ago." "How do I know that?" Lena asked. "How do I know you're not just better at hiding it?" "You don't know," Seojin said. "That's the terrible truth. You have to choose to trust me anyway. Just like I have to choose to be worthy of that trust every single day. There's no guarantee. No safety net. Just two broken people trying to build something real out of the wreckage." Lena wiped her eyes. "I hate this," she said. "I hate feeling weak. I hate giving her this much power over me." "Then let's take the power back," Seojin said. "Tell me what you need." "I need to confront her," Lena said. "Not at some public event where we both have to be polite. Really confront her. Face to face. Make her understand that I'm not going anywhere." Seojin nodded slowly. "Then we'll arrange it. I'll have Jiwoo contact her people and set up a private meeting." "Are you sure you're ready for that?" "I'm not ready," Lena said. "But I'm doing it anyway." The meeting was set for the following week at a neutral location, a private room at an upscale restaurant. Yura arrived perfectly composed as always, her armor of designer clothes and flawless makeup firmly in place. Lena arrived with Seojin but asked him to wait outside. This needed to be between the two women. Yura raised an eyebrow as Seojin left. "Brave of you to face me alone. Or foolish, depending on how you look at it." "I'm not afraid of you," Lena said, taking a seat across from her. "I used to be. But I've realized something. You're just a woman who's afraid of being forgotten. And you see me as the reason you were forgotten." Yura's smile was sharp. "Amateur psychology. How quaint." "It's not psychology," Lena said. "It's observation. You had Seojin years ago, and you let him go. Or maybe he let you go because you weren't what he needed. Either way, you had your chance. And now you're bitter that he found something real with someone else." "Real?" Yura laughed. "You call what you have with him real? He built your entire relationship on lies. He manipulated you into falling in love with him. He took away your choices. That's not love, darling. That's Stockholm Syndrome." "You're right," Lena said calmly. "About all of it. He did manipulate me. He did lie. He did take away my choices. And I left him for it. I walked away from everything we'd built because I refused to be a victim of his control." Yura's smile faltered slightly. "And yet you went back." "Because I chose to," Lena said. "Not because he manipulated me. Not because I had no other options. But because I decided that the man he's becoming is worth the risk. That's the difference between you and me, Yura. I'm not here because I'm too weak to leave. I'm here because I'm strong enough to stay and demand better." Yura's composure cracked. You think you're special? You think you're the one who finally changed him? Men like Seojin don't change. They just find new ways to hide their true nature. Maybe Lena conceded. Maybe I'm wrong about him. Maybe this will all blow up in my face. But at least I'll know I tried. At least I'll know I was brave enough to risk my heart again. What have you risked, Yura? What have you put on the line besides your pride? Yura stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. This conversation is over. Before you go, Lena said, let me make one thing clear. If you continue to interfere in my marriage, I won't be polite about it. I won't smile and pretend I don't see what you're doing. I'll destroy you. Legally, professionally, socially. I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of person you are. Yura's eyes flashed with anger. You're threatening me? I'm promising you, Lena said. Stay away from my husband. Stay away from my life. Or find out what happens when you push someone who has nothing left to lose. The two women stared at each other for a long moment, a silent battle of wills. Then Yura grabbed her purse and left without another word. Lena sat alone in the room, her hands shaking now that the adrenaline was wearing off. But beneath the trembling was something else. Pride. Strength. The knowledge that she'd stood her ground. Seojin appeared in the doorway. I heard raised voices. Are you okay? Lena looked up at him and smiled. A real smile that reached her eyes for the first time in weeks. I'm better than okay, she said. I think I just remembered who I am. That night, they made love for the first time since the elevator confrontation. It wasn't gentle or tentative. It was fierce, desperate, full of all the anger and pain and need they'd been holding back. Afterwards, lying tangled in sheets, Lena traced patterns on Seojin's chest. I'm not saying I forgive you, she said quietly. Not completely. Not yet. I know, Seojin said. But we're going to be okay, Lena continued. I can feel it. For the first time since all of this happened, I actually believe we might survive this. Seojin pulled her closer. We will, he promised. Whatever it takes. Days passed into weeks. The therapy continued. The work continued. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, things began to shift. The apartment started to feel like home again instead of a battlefield. They learned to communicate without accusations. They learned to trust in small increments. Lena got the job at the museum. Her first day, Seojin made her breakfast, packed her lunch like they were kids, and kissed her goodbye at the door. It felt normal. Domestic. Real. When she came home that evening, exhausted but glowing, he had dinner waiting. I'm proud of you, he said as they ate. You're building something that's entirely yours. I am, Lena agreed. And it feels amazing. But I want you to know something. This life I'm building, I want you in it. Not as the center of it, but as a part of it. That's all I've ever wanted, Seojin said. To be worthy of a place in your life. You're getting there, Lena said. Slowly. But you're getting there. They fell into a new rhythm. Mornings were for coffee and quiet conversation. Evenings were for sharing their days, their struggles, their victories. Weekends were for exploring the city together, rediscovering why they'd fallen in love in the first place. It wasn't perfect. There were still hard days. Days when old wounds reopened. Days when trust felt impossible. But they kept choosing each other. That was the difference. They kept showing up. One evening, about 3 months after Lena had moved back in, Seojin's phone rang. It was Miho. They'd been in sporadic contact since the confession, nothing warm, but civil at least. Seojin answered. Miho. I need to see you, Miho said. Both of you. It's important. They met at the same hotel where they'd had their first confrontation. This time Miho looked different. Less angry. More tired. He ordered coffee for all three of them and sat back, studying them. You look happy, he said finally. As happy as two people can be while rebuilding from rubble, Seojin said. Why did you want to see us? Miho took a breath. I've been doing a lot of thinking. A lot of therapy of my own, actually. And I've realized something. I've been holding on to this anger for so long that it became part of my identity. The wronged brother. The victim of your ambition. But staying stuck in that role isn't helping anyone. Least of all me. What are you saying? Lena asked gently. I'm saying I don't forgive you, Miho said, looking at Seojin. I don't know if I ever will. But I'm tired of letting what you did control my life. I'm tired of the anger. So I'm choosing to let it go. Not for you. For me. Seojin felt emotion clog his throat. Thank you, he managed. You don't need to thank me, Miho said. This isn't a gift to you. It's a gift to myself. But there is something I want. What? Seojin asked. The truth, Miho said, turning to Lena. I need to hear from you. Did you ever love me? Or was it always him? Lena was quiet for a long moment, choosing her words carefully. I did love you, she said finally. Maybe not the way you deserved. Maybe not the way I should have. But I cared about you deeply. You were my first real relationship, my first experience with being chosen by someone. And when you ended it, it shattered me. Miho nodded slowly. I ended it because I could see it in your eyes, he said. The way you looked at him at that gala in Paris. I knew before you did that your heart was somewhere else. I just couldn't compete with the version of love you didn't even know you were feeling. I'm sorry, Lena whispered. Don't be, Miho said. You can't control who you love. None of us can. The three of them sat in heavy silence. Then Miho stood. I should go. But I want you both to know something. I hope you make it. I hope this crazy, broken thing you're building actually works. Because if it doesn't, if all this pain was for nothing, that would be the real tragedy. With that, he left. Lena and Seojin sat in stunned silence. That was Lena started. Unexpected, Seojin finished. Yeah. They left the hotel hand in hand. As they walked to the car, Lena suddenly stopped. What? Seojin asked. I just realized something, she said. What? I choose you, Lena said simply. Not because I don't have other options. Not because I'm too weak to leave. But because even with all the pain, all the betrayal, all the work, I still choose you. Every day. Seojin pulled her close, pressing his forehead against hers. And I choose to be worthy of that choice, he said. Every single day for the rest of my life. They kissed there on the sidewalk, oblivious to the pedestrians flowing around them, to the city humming with life. It was just them, two broken people who'd found a way to fit their jagged edges together. When they pulled apart, Lena was smiling. Take me home, she said. Home. Not the penthouse. Not Seojin's apartment. Home. The place they were building together. Seojin's heart soared. As they drove through Seoul's glittering streets, Lena leaned her head on his shoulder. Do you think we'll make it? She asked quietly. Seojin thought about lying. About giving her the reassurance she wanted. But they'd promised honesty. Always. I think we have a fighting chance, he said. And that's enough for me. It was enough for her too. Because love wasn't about certainty. It wasn't about perfect trust or complete forgiveness. It was about choosing to stay even when leaving would be easier. It was about rebuilding when everything had burned down. It was about two people, flawed and broken, deciding that together they could become something whole. And as they pulled into the underground parking garage of their building, as they rode the elevator up to the 45th floor, as they stepped into the penthouse that had once been a prison and was now a sanctuary, Seojin realized something. He'd spent years trying to control Lena, to shape her into fitting his vision of what they should be. But the woman beside him now, strong and independent and choosing him freely, was infinitely more precious than any fantasy he'd constructed. This was real love. Messy, complicated, hard one, real. That night, as they lay in bed, Lena suddenly turned to him. I need to tell you something. Seojin's heart clenched with familiar fear. What is it? If you ever lie to me again, she said, her voice serious, if you ever manipulate me or take away my choices, or try to control me the way you used to, I will leave. And I won't come back. I know, Seojin said. I promise you, I will never give you a reason to leave. Good, Lena said. Then she smiled. And it was like the sun breaking through clouds. Because I really don't want to have to start over with someone else. I'm quite attached to you now. Despite your terrible history of making good decisions. Seojin laughed, the sound rusty from disuse but genuine. Despite my terrible history? I think that's the nicest thing you've ever said to me. Don't let it go to your head, Lena said, but she was still smiling. Your head's big enough as it is. They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, two people who'd been to hell and chosen to climb out together. The future stretched ahead of them, uncertain but full of possibility. And for the first time in a long time, Seojin felt something he'd thought he'd lost forever. Hope. Not the desperate hope of a man clinging to delusions, but the quiet, steady hope of someone who knew that love wasn't about possession. It was about partnership. And he'd finally found someone worth partnering with. Someone who would never let him hide from himself. Someone who demanded his best and called him on his worst. Someone who chose him not because she had to, but because she wanted to. Lena. The woman who'd saved him by refusing to be saved. The woman who'd loved him by demanding he become someone worth loving. His wife. His partner. His equal. And finally, truly his choice, just as he was hers. The end was really just another beginning. And they were ready for it. Together. If you loved this story of redemption and second chances, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more emotional romance stories. Drop a comment below and tell me, do you think Seojin and Lena will make it? Would you have given him a second chance? Let me know your thoughts, and I'll see you in the next story.